Good evening and welcome once again to the Ball So Hard NBA betting podcast. And this week we have a very special ep and we're previewing round 2.
Lego!
Lego! And this week we've got a very special pod for you. We've been joined by our very special guest, Ev Sanity. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Yeah, that's the way. How was your week, Jacob?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. Yeah, and it's good to have, this is a historic moment again for us, all three guests all in the pod together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm feeling loose today. Got a nice Ling Thai massage today.
Did you?
Yeah, and it took me a long time. I had an expired Groupon voucher, tried to use it. They told me no on Friday when it was pouring down rain. I said, look, I'm not risking my fucking life to go have a massage, mate.
Don't get fired.
Yeah, and then they said, oh, sorry, we can't reschedule you. So I said, listen to me. I'm going to report you to the authorities unless you let me reschedule. They let me reschedule. I went in today and I think she was angry, eh? She really got stuck in. She had, at one point, her whole body was on top of me and she was kneeling on my back, like rolling back and forward.
Oh, no.
And yeah, so now I'm feeling loose, but my back's a little bit sore. But anyway.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad you're back in the studio because last time, obviously, you're on the road recording that pod from your car, and I had to kind of assume hosting duties. And I've got to say, I've got a newfound respect for what you do. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's hard hosting a pod like this.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty hard, and that's probably the first time that any of us has heard that quote.
And that was a pretty successful round 1 preview pod that we did. Gave out a lot of winning bets. For the fans, I think we picked 5 sides that we saw a lot of value in.
Yep.
And if you look at how those sides performed in the first round, the Pelicans got swept but actually covered 3 out of 4. We had the Wizards swept as underdogs, covering 4 out of 4 games. The Cavaliers swept. The Clippers covered 4 out of 7, should have covered 6 out of 7.
Yep.
And we might get to that later. And Dallas weren't so fortunate, but 2 of their starting players were both ruled out by the first quarter of game 2.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of bad luck.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
But something like 18-7 against the spread, our teams performed.
Yeah.
That's making good money for people.
Yeah, so I mean, we're choosing the right sides. We're on the right sides. And why don't we jump into our takeaways from round 1? Ev, Ron, what do you reckon? What do you reckon about the first round of this year's NBA playoffs?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing to mention is Cleveland and what's gone down there. So in a heated exchange with Boston in the last game, Kevin Love dislocated his shoulder and is now ruled out for the next 4 to 6 months. So he's gone.
Did that look deliberate to you?
I think it looked pretty vicious. I mean, it's a Boston team, so you know they'll be physical. But yeah, I don't think that was an accident.
Yeah, I thought he actually armbarred him and reefed his arm out. Pretty weak by Love to get a dislocated shoulder out of it, but it wasn't really a basketball play.
No. Yeah, I didn't think it was deliberate, but anyway. You think Love hurts that team?
Well, Kevin, he's the best, probably the 3rd best player on that team after LeBron and Kyrie. He's had a good first year in Cleveland. He's been averaging pretty good numbers. His absence in the paint is gonna really hurt them on the rebounding end. Guys like Mozgov are gonna really have to step up now. Kendrick Perkins is gonna have to play extra minutes. Even Mike Miller's going to have to hit a few of the threes that Kevin Love would normally be making. And you've also got J.R. Smith suspended for the first 2 games for another separate incident in that same game against Boston. So, yeah, I think betting against Cleveland from now on will be a good idea for the value better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Love didn't necessarily put up the same numbers this year that he did in the Timberwolves, but he really was important to that side. Yeah. I've seen some stats where when he's on the floor, that is by far the best offense in the league. They're scoring at something like 115 points per possession, which is probably 10 points per possession better than the league average. And when he's not on the floor, it's in the 80s in points per possession. It makes a dramatic difference just because of his ability to spread the floor. He's a big man. He's 6'10". He can drain threes. It pulls another opposition big man out of the paint, opens everything up for Kyrie and for LeBron. That's a real problem because he's now out for the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a takeaway, Saka?
Well, yeah, that leads into what I was going to say, which was just injuries. Like, there were so many key injuries, and you really need to be aware of it when you're betting on NBA playoff games. You had Kyle Lowry couldn't move, and that really killed the Raptors. We had Mike Conley, the leading point guard for the Grizz. He went down. He went down in Game 5. We have Millsap was struggling with a shoulder for the Hawks. Rondo, we mentioned Kevin Love, Chandler Parsons was out, Chris Paul tore his hammy in Game 7. You had the Pelicans, they lost 2 of their point guards in Evans and Holiday. A lot of injuries, and that's what you will get with the NBA season being so long, a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference. You've got to understand how valuable guys are when you're handicapping.
Definitely, and you always have to check the injury reports, and I mean, it's only as easy as looking at the game today. Obviously, Conley ruled out with a facial fracture, and he's probably their most important piece. Obviously, he comes back in, has a ripper of a game, and they steal Game 2 away. So, I mean, if you wouldn't have been checking the updates, you would have just thought, Conley's out for Game 2, this is a walkover. So you got to constantly be checking the injury updates. I'll be quick on my takeaway. That Spurs-Clips series was just ridiculous. Like, I would say every single game in that series was probably better than every other series combined, pretty much, except for maybe the Pels Game 3. But that's just a ridiculously high standard, such a tough game or round 1. And I think if the Clips, I think the Clips Rockets series is going to be a great one as well. But I mean that series was just ridiculous. I think in Game 7 they had something like 28 lead changes or something like that, but just a ripper of a series. But I think we'll move on. We've actually got a new segment for you guys tonight, and this is a bit of a fun one. So basically, what we're going to do today, each of us has chosen a mystery player, and we're going to read out the stats, and I guess see if you can guess who it is. And where do we want to start? You want to start in the East or
start in the Western Conference?
Let's start in the West. So I've got someone from the West. All right. So we've got a power forward, 6'10", 26 years old, 21.9 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 50% from field goal, 50% field goals, 72.8 from the free throw stripe.
Well, to me, that's got to be Blake.
You would be absolutely correct.
And he is balling up. That was
balling
another takeaway I had. People might not realise just how good Blake Griffin is. He's an athletic freak. They talk about, for his size, what he can do with his body, the way he can move, the way he can jump. It's really only comparable to a guy like LeBron at that size. And the skill that he really has worked on his craft. He's pretty skillful around the basket, and he was a guy you couldn't trust to make free throws.
Yeah.
73%.
That's where I thought you guys
bad.
might have gotten thrown off. 73% free throws. That's pretty good. He used to be hovering at 50%.
And that he can take that team a long way. I really think there's no one on the Warriors that can deal with him. Should those two sides meet in the West Finals, that Clippers team is really loaded in their crunch time 5. Obviously led by Chris Paul.
Yeah.
You've got DeAndre Jordan guarding the paint. Why don't we talk about that series since we're in the West? So,
yeah, sure.
So the Clippers are playing the Rockets. I think we've had one game so far.
Yep. Yeah, sure. And the Clips actually stole Game 1 away, and that was without Chris Paul. He's still recovering with a hammy injury. But at the moment, the line sits at, you can grab Rockets +2, or obviously the Clips -2. What do you think about this one, Evron?
Look, definitely don't count the Rockets out after losing Game 1. I think they probably just needed a game to sort of get a feel for who they're up against in the Clippers, because, as you said, the Clippers are a tough team to defend against. You've got an absolute beast in DeAndre Jordan. You send your biggest player to go and guard him, and then you got Blake Griffin he's hitting like 17-foot jumpers, and he's also banging on inside as well. Chris Paul, he played on one leg.
He did.
At the end of last series, and if he comes back, they'll just become even tougher to guard. I think they did get a bit lucky in Game 1. Guys sort of overachieved a little bit on that Clippers team, like Austin Rivers and Matt Barnes, you probably won't expect those guys to score 20 points each game in this series. So, the next game and the next game after that will be a bit closer. So definitely don't count out the Rockets. But yeah, James Harden, I think, has to score 30 points per game for this Rockets team to beat the Clippers. So I would, I'd expect him to lift his game now, and I probably would take Rockets +2.
I tend to agree with you there, and I think exactly what you're saying. If Austin Rivers is the answer, then you're asking the wrong question.
Yeah.
Because he's really not a good player. He probably
No.
wouldn't be there if his dad wasn't the coach. And maybe people don't realise that Chris Paul is still probably the best pure point guard in the league. He's an amazing player in the clutch. He can score. He can get his shot anytime he wants. He leads that team, and he tore his hammy in the second quarter of Game 7. Was in tears basically on the bench. You thought it might have been all over. Came back out and hit 4 threes, including a winning bank shot with 1 second left to send him through. But he didn't play in Game 1. And no one could have predicted anything but a Rockets walkover in Game 1. And somehow this Clippers bench where Hedo Turkoglu and Glenn Davis playing meaningful minutes was able to win on the road. That's pretty crazy. For me, it's really hard to bet on this series because I feel like I'm betting on Chris Paul's hamstring. If he's healthy, the Clippers will win this series. We just spoke about how good Blake and DJ are. You've got JJ Redick and Jamal Crawford making shots as well. But if Chris Paul didn't play in round 1, then I know he's not 100%. You spoke about Harden has to score 30. I don't think that's an issue at all. I think he will. He will score 30. You've got Dwight a bit refreshed. I kind of favour the Clippers, but the line seems to be too far over adjusted with +2 for the Rockets. The Rockets hold home court advantage, albeit they lost Game 1. Seeing a pretty close series, so I'd be tempted to take the Rockets with the line handicap there.
Yep, I like it. And this week, we'll give out a play on basically every series that's going on. So I really like Rockets +2. I think this game has 7 games written all over it. In which case you'll win your bet. But the Rockets couldn't have played any worse Game 1. I mean, Dwight had a big game, but Harden was average at best. So let's take Rockets +2 as our first best bet. And then did we want to move on to? Do you have another? You have a mystery player in the West? Does anyone else have a mystery player in the West
for the East for you boys?
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, Shall we move on to the next series in the West?
Yep.
So obviously, Golden State Warriors v the Grizz, and this series is tied up at 1-1. And at the moment, you can get the Golden State Warriors -1.5 games. And I'll flick it over to you guys, but I think they can come back from that. That was a horrible performance today. I don't think it'll happen again.
Yeah, and we're recording this pod only a few hours after a shock victory by Memphis that Alex mentioned earlier. Definitely wouldn't have happened without the brave return of Conley playing with a fractured face. He had the Batman mask on and he was able to lead the way there. So now we're at 1-1. We go to Memphis for 2 games. That was Golden State's first loss of the playoffs, and they've been an absolute juggernaut. We were all talking about how good this team is. Steph Curry was awarded the MVP last night, and I was really starting to think, is there any possible way they can lose 4 games out of 7 in a series? It's such a good team. Usually people have always said, excuse me, that teams can't win in the playoffs shooting threes. That threes will win you a game but not a series. But this team is the exception to the rule. These guys shoot threes like they're layups. So I don't think I've ever seen a shooter like Steph Curry. Have you guys?
No.
No, not in our lifetime. I don't think there's a better shooting pair than Curry and Klay Thompson. If they're both fully healthy, you'll expect them to take this series over.
And the thing is, the guy can shoot 46% from 3, which other players have done in the past, but those other players were role players sitting in the corner getting wide open shots and making, close to half of them.
Yeah,
this guy's pulling up off the dribble, jumping back behind the 3-point line, shooting with a hand in his face, shooting ridiculous angles, and he's shooting that percentage. No one can shoot the ball like him, and you've got to understand that.
Yeah, they're all. Yeah, I mean, most of the threes that he is taking, he's taking the ball off himself, and they are contested, and he's still making nearly 50%. And I mean, who made? Oh, there was one other player basically that made close to 50%. I think might have been just shy of 50%. That's Kyle Korver, and he's just a spot-up shooter that's chilling in the corner. Most of his shots, well, not most, but a lot more than Steph's are wide open threes from the corner. So yeah, they're an absolute juggernaut. And I mean, do we want to talk a little bit? I guess. Well, I'm happy to take Golden State minus the 1.5. I think that was an anomaly game too. I think they'll come fired up, and I think they'll at least steal one game in Memphis, if not two. And I think they're winning this series. Either 4-1 or 4-2, basically.
Yeah, and the thing about Curry's ability to make the three, and it seems to be infectious with his teammates because of his ability to do everything with the ball, just opens things up for everybody else. Klay Thompson had 37 points in a quarter. They can come from anywhere. You know, it can be a tied game and you can blink and they're up 12. They can be down 7 and next thing they can flip it around. There was no better evidence of that than when they were down 18 in the fourth quarter against the Pelicans. And we know that all too well because we had a best bet on the Pelicans to just win one game in that series. And I mean, the Pelicans were still up 5 with 11 seconds left.
Yes.
And Curry made 2 threes, one of them...
That's happened one other time in playoff history.
It should have been a 4-point play.
That a team has come back from 20 or more down in the fourth.
And that
of course it happens to us.
Yeah, that was the difference between being 3-2 and 4-1 on our series plays. But it's just such a good team. You're never out of the game. They can blow a game wide open, and they can score in the paint and outside of it. So I'm with you there. Let's take the Warriors minus 1.5 games.
Warriors minus 1.5 games as our second best bet. Do you want to quickly talk about if you'd take the Warriors v the field?
Today's loss kind of throws a spanner in the works, I should say, not a hammer. Probably not, because they've got a tough series on their hands here, and I do think they'll get through this, but then they could have the Clippers or the Rockets waiting for them in the West, and then who knows who's going to come out of the East, but it's not going to be a walkover, whether it be Atlanta, Cleveland, or the Bulls. So I'll probably take the field at this stage. What about you guys?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I really believe in the Clippers. I think if they can come through this Houston series, they'll be a real handful for a team that has won so many games. Warriors aren't used to grinding victories out like this. They won by more than 10 points 48 times out of the 82 games this year. They are used to walking teams over. If they have to grind through a series now and then try and grind through another one, I think they might have a bit of trouble on their hands.
Yeah, this really is a historically great team. Just one more point about Curry, we should have said it earlier. Yeah. There was a story on ESPN, I don't know if you guys saw this, where he made 77 straight threes in practice.
What?
See that?
That isn't a joke. Like, he actually, just think about that. Is there anyone else on the planet that could make 77 straight threes?
Heathy?
And that's an anomaly right there.
Yeah, he made 7, and that's once in a century. Yeah, happening.
Things are different in his world, though.
Yes, that's true. But 77, that's absolutely ridiculous.
The talk about is easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Yeah, true. Well, I guess that's how he did it.
He can make them in games, though. Keep your eye out on that.
I'm going to say real quickly, I disagree. I don't see anyone beating the Warriors. I think they're going to beat the Grizz. And then you got to say, look, they're playing the Rockets or the Clips next in the West Finals. The Clips are going to be banged up. They've had a brutal series with the Spurs. If Chris Paul's not going to be 100% healthy, especially if he plays most of the series against the Rockets, which will be a fairly brutal series as well. I think they're coming out of the West, and then they're playing, either a very good Bulls team, who I think they can handle, either a Cavs team missing a player. That's probably the two that are going to come out of there. I think the winner of that series will progress, but we can talk about that later. So should we move on to the East? Oh yeah.
Well, we wanted to just give a shout out to the Aussies that are still left in the playoffs. Well, I'll start by saying we asked the question last pod, would an Aussie have a meaningful moment in the playoffs? And there already have been a few. Paddy Mills making four straight threes in a really critical Game 5 in LA. Aaron Baines getting absolutely posterised by Blake Griffin, I think 3 times in one quarter.
Yep.
What else have you seen
Well,
from Aussies?
Bogut's been solid. And the thing is, he's really their only big man. And they do think of, you think of the Warriors as a really offensive team, but as we've mentioned before, number one in offense and defense. And Bogut's a massive part of that. And he's been, usually he just looks like a lazy motherfucker. But
Yeah, he
he's
does, when he needs to, change direction and go back to the other end of the court, he does the whole old man,
he's
sweeten
lumbering
his
up
body,
there.
the
Yeah.
momentum change to get started. He looks like he can barely move, but
Yeah.
he's actually an integral part
Yeah,
of
he's
that
been a
defense.
beast, blocking shots and everything. Today he didn't have a very good game. I know Curry fired about 4 passes at him, and some were a little bit low, and the clown fumbled them. But I mean, he's obviously an integral part of that team, and if he's out, they're not winning the championship. We do have F Sanity in the building with us. We do like to give a shout out to our sponsors every now and then. Let's hear from him here live.
Look, guys, it's pretty simple. If you want to get that summer body ready, you got to start in the winter. Start training now, Alex. This is the time to do it. Jump onto Ev Sanity's Instagram, have a look of what I've got on there, and train Ev Sane or stay the same.
Remain a stain or remain a stain.
Yeah, and I'll vouch for Evan there, and I had a bit of a moment. It was actually a couple of days ago, and I remember when I was training Ev Sane for a little bit, I was down to 101 kilos, which is still bloody heavy, but it was probably pretty good.
We were making progress.
Yeah. And 2 days ago, I went to the blood bank.
Can I stop you there?
No.
Let's not spoil that. We're going to touch on that in our tripod.
So
if people
fair
want to
enough.
hear the second half of that story,
We'll save that story for them.
What number was he going to say? Who knows? Now
Save that number
you've
for
got
them.
to listen to the NRL Round 9 preview for the tripod, which we'll be recording straight after this pod.
It's a bit like guessing how
Save
many
that.
jelly beans are in the jar, isn't it?
Yep. And it's a bit like guessing a mystery player from the East. And I've got one as well, but I don't know if I'll shoot away with mine. So the first one, obviously, Sakib got straight away, but this one's a little bit trickier. Alright, so I'll give you the points, rebounds, and assists, and if you need another hint, I can give you position, height, and age. But 20 points, 5.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 46% from the field, 38% from threes, and 83% from the charity stripe. Who am I?
How many points?
20.
points. So 20 points, 6 boards, 4 assists.
3 assists, yeah.
I can see Evans on his iPad cheating here, is he? Or you're getting your mystery player
I'm
ready?
just getting mine.
fair enough.
Ready.
So that's pretty gaudy stats, I've got to say.
Yep.
Shooting nearly 40% from 3 and pretty economical from the field. I'll have a guess.
Kyrie Irving.
I was going to guess Jimmy Butler.
Yes! That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
And that's a good...
I can't believe that. We didn't talk about this at all.
And the thing is, I think, because I wanted to talk about how good the Bulls are, and I was trying to get you guys on board in the first round pod, that's just a really good team. Derrick Rose, another takeaway, I didn't mention this other pod, I said I need better than 80% Derrick Rose for the Bulls to be a contender, and I've got it. He does have that bounce. He's not the same D Rose that won the MVP, but he's not far off it. He's taking it to the paint. He's got a jump shot. He can create penetration, and that team's got other role players, and they've got a big front court. They can go the distance. Have you got a mystery player for us, Ev?
I do. I've got one as well. Who am I? I am 6'10". I weigh 250 pounds.
250.
And my career playoffs stats is 12.4 points a game, 8.7 boards, and 2.7 assists per game.
Is this a player currently in the playoffs?
He is, yes.
Yeah, right. So what was it? 12 points and 8 rebounds.
That's not that impressive.
No, it's not. It's almost like a backup center or something.
Eastern Conference. Yeah, is it someone like Joakim Noah?
It's not. Did you want to guess again?
Yeah, I guess we can.
He'd have more rebounds, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Noah has 10.5 rebounds, I think, something like that. I'm trying to think. Is it Timofey Mozgov.
He hasn't played in the playoffs. He used to play for the Nuggets, mate.
He's never made
Who
the
is it,
playoffs.
Em?
It's Al Horford, the Atlanta Hawks
there you
center.
go. So
True.
and I think part of that is that he hasn't been on very successful playoff teams because they're not great numbers.
Well, he's played 6 years for the Hawks in the playoffs. His best year was averaging 10.4 boards a game and 16.7 points a game.
But I think he has come into his own this season.
He's an integral part of that squad.
Yeah, and we all like the Hawks in that series.
Yeah.
We'll probably get to that in a second. I've got one more mystery player for you guys, so I'll read out the stats here. So who's this player? 19 points per game, shooting 49% from the field and 80% from free throws. 12 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, 2 blocks, and he played in 78 games this year. So 19, 12, 3 and 2 on good shooting.
12 rebounds.
Yeah.
That has to be Noah, doesn't it?
Nah, it's...
Joakim Noah's not scoring 19 a
No.
game.
I'd want to say like LeBron, but he doesn't have that many rebounds. Trying to think of someone else. 12 rebounds. 19 points.
And 2 blocks, which is in the top 10 in the league as well.
And he played 78 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Let's see. It's not LeBron, is it?
This is thrilling radio that we're making.
It's not LeBron.
It's Pau. It's a rejuvenated Pau Gasol. Did you
Pau's
guys
19
realise
points.
he is having the season of his life? He's 34 years old. And this is what people don't understand about the Bulls. The last couple of years they had Carlos Boozer mailing it in, collecting $12 million a year. This is a real team here. We just spoke about how good Jimmy Butler has got a poor man's LeBron stats. You've got Derrick Rose getting to the rim. You've got Noah, who was Defensive Player of the Year last year. And you've got Pau, who's actually, they can run the offense through. That's a killer team. I love the Bulls. Maybe we should talk about the Bulls-Cavs right now.
Yeah, let's talk about the Bulls-Cavs. So 1 game down. Obviously, the Bulls pinched game 1 with Kevin Love out, and obviously J.R. Smith out as well. So Bulls up 1-0 in the series. But we wanted to say, obviously, I think we want to wait until after game 2 to play this, because we really believe that you're not getting too much line value after the Bulls just stole game 1. So we're saying, I'm saying, wait till after game 2. We think the Cavs will win game 2 at home, and then the line will be somewhere around, plus 1.5 on the Bulls, and I'd be happy to take something like that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, as we said before, the injuries to the Cavs do probably hamper them a little bit now. So I think as a betting man, you do want to take a Bulls team playing an injured Cavs team. LeBron is one of the best of all time, maybe the best of our generation. He's going to have a cracking series. Kyrie's going to do everything he can in his playoff series to help them win. But I just don't think they have the length inside to deal with Pau Gasol and Joakim Noah.
And Taj Gibson backing them up. You're right. In playoffs, it's different, and you got to have big men that can get it done in there. The Bulls are a real playoff team. I had a question actually come in from a fan in New Zealand, and it's about LeBron. So why don't I ask it here now? I think he's asked a few questions here. But the question is, did Steph Curry deserve the MVP? I'm not saying LeBron should have got it, but a team that missed the playoffs last year and lands a 2 seed the following year sounds pretty valuable to me.
Well, he did come 3rd in the MVP voting. But I guess, when you're saying the most valuable player, it's tough to really not give it to a historically good team in Golden State, and by far their best player in Steph Curry. That's had an absolutely historic season, obviously sinking, I think, 286 threes or something like that. So I think, you could make a case for LeBron, but I think that I'd obviously put Curry ahead of him, and then I'd also put Harden ahead of him, and he was ahead of him in the voting. You had Dwight out for most of the season, and Harden just hoisted that Rockets team on his back and carried them to a 2 seed in the West. You've got to give it to Curry in that scenario, I think.
Yeah, let's just remember, it's not actually an award for who is the best player in the league. The best player on the planet right now might still be LeBron, in my opinion it probably was, but it's a regular season award for who had the best regular season. And LeBron actually took a couple weeks off. He had vacation in the middle of January.
Bahamas or something.
He went to Miami, chilled out there, he went and watched Ohio State play in the national championship game. He gave himself rest. And then he got to come back and play with Kyrie Irving, who dropped multiple 50-point games.
Yep.
Neither of those guys, had a teammate that was doing that. He played in the East, so yeah, they got a 2 seed, but a 2 seed in the East isn't as impressive as what Curry did in the Western Conference to win 67 games. But the point I want to make about Jimbo's question is that I think LeBron's got another gear. I really think he went through the season in third gear. And this is the time to shine right now. An easy first round series against Boston, but now they're down 1-0. Now they don't have home court. LeBron is still at his apex. I'm expecting an absolute, top echelon LeBron game here. He's at home. He can't lose 2 straight games at home. His window at the very peak of his prime is closing. He needs to step up. I'm expecting a huge game. That's why I agree with you. I think the Bulls are winning this series, but I think the Cavs are winning the next game. Let's play the Bulls after game 2 when it's 1-1.
Yeah.
We'll see what line we'll get. We'll post it on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. We'll check out the line. We'll shop around for you guys, and we'll let you know. And then should we? I guess we'll finish off with the Hawks. Now we mentioned obviously Atlanta last night, and that we grabbed them at plus 1.5 games. And obviously, this morning they did win game 2 against the Wiz. But I still really like the Hawks to win this series, and I think they're going to do it in less than 7 games. I think.
Well, you're getting plus 1.5, so even if they get to 7, then you'll win that bet.
Yeah.
And one thing you have to be careful about in basketball, almost unlike any other sport, is that when you're betting against a team where the other side has the best player on the floor, it's always risky. And we're taking the Bulls. We all understand that LeBron's the best player in that series and that the Cavs can win that series. And I think we all agree...
They've got the best 2 players in that series.
Yeah, arguably, for sure. And I think we can all agree the best player in this series might be John Wall.
Yep.
But that Hawks team is such a good team and such a good starting unit with 4 All-Stars. Now it's 1-1. We took them when they were down 1-0. We had faith in them. John Wall is the best player in that series, but he's under an injury cloud. He's got a sore wrist. He didn't play in game 2. Bradley Beal's a little banged up with his ankle. So I think the Wiz got a bit lucky in round 1. They caught a Toronto team with a Kyle Lowry that couldn't move.
Yeah.
I think
DeMar
the Wiz,
DeRozan that couldn't shoot.
Yeah, the Wiz playing Pierce at the 4, it worked really well for them. You got to be careful because it is an awesome backcourt, but I think Atlanta's going to grind them down over 7 games. One guy that I was really worried about was Paul Millsap. He hurt his shoulder at the end of the season, but if you look at the numbers Paul Millsap's put up in this series and at the end of last, he's back to health. He's getting more than 10 rebounds, 20 points. If he's fine, I think the Hawks have a good chance to actually almost make the finals. How do you see this one, Ev Brown?
Yeah, I agree with you there. The Wizards are a good young team, but they're not a great young team. They rely on a lot of jump shots, and I just don't think they can get it done. We have to remember how good Atlanta are defensively as well as offensively. They're not just going to let Beal and Wall score 30 points each night. They're going to be all over those guys on the perimeter. Paul Pierce, he's pretty much done. He's a bit of a old man walking now. I don't really think he's going to have a big series. He might make a few big shots, but yeah, Atlanta are just too much of a good, well-drilled team to let this Wizards team bother them too much.
Yeah.
So the Hawks plus 1.5 games in this series, another best bet.
Yep. So that'll wrap up all the 4 games. So do we want to I guess you want to give a Smokey? Obviously we talked last week about who we thought would make the finals, and we gave out a Smokey tip. For someone that might be a little higher in odds to possibly take it all out. Anything changed for you?
I'm calling a Bulls-Warriors finals, but I said on the first pod that my Smokey would be the Grizzlies, and I'm sticking with that. If anyone can beat the Warriors, I think it's the Grizzlies. Hope not, because we're playing the Warriors as a best bet. We were kind of gambling on the health of Conley, and maybe he's a little healthier than we thought, so we're going to have to sweat on Steph Curry making a few big shots, but he certainly can. So I'll say keep your eye on the Grizz, definitely a good outsider, But for me, it's a Warriors-Bulls finals.
Yeah, and I know I said Warriors Cavs, and I still think the Warriors are going to make it out of the West. And I think I know we're back in the Bulls, so it's tough. In that East, I think it's really basically any team I think could make it out of there, with the exception, I think, of the Wiz. I think if they happen to beat the Hawks, they will lose to the winner of the Bulls-Cavs series. But I think, the winner of the Bulls-Cavs series is making it through to the finals, and then they're losing to Golden State. In terms of a Smoky, it's a little bit tough because in the East, they're all sort of similar now, I guess. The Smoky in the East would be the Wiz, but I don't think they can make it out of there. Let's take the Rockets to come out of the West. Let's hope that what they need is to win that one in 5 or 6 games, I guess. And then to have Memphis absolutely grind Golden State, which I think is improbable. But if I was going to choose a Smoky, that would be it'd be the Rockets. And of course, with that one, you'd need Chris Paul not to be 100% for the whole series, which isn't too far-fetched.
Yeah, in the first pod, I said that the Rockets might be a sleeper. I still don't think that that's too far-fetched as well, but yeah, I think this Clippers team's probably going to beat them now as well. So I think, the Warriors should take this competition out.
Who do you see coming out of the East, Efron? I know you love the Cavs.
I do love the Cavs, and I did say Atlanta the first time. I don't think that's going to change. Now that the Cavs have lost Love as well, it's just going to make it less likely for them to beat a very good Atlanta team. But it's sort of irrelevant because I think Warriors beat either team.
Yeah,
even the Bulls.
I tend to agree. So we've got four best bets for you on the series lines for the NBA. Now in the West, we're taking Golden State minus 1.5 games, as well as the Rockets plus 2 games. Heading over to the East, we're saying wait for the game 2 in the Cavs-Bulls series. Obviously, we hope that the Cavs win that and then play the Bulls after that. If the Bulls win game 2, then we'd probably say leave it alone.
You might still just take the Bulls in that series because if they do win
depending
game
on what
2,
the odds are,
depending on the odds, but they're almost certainly winning that series.
They'll be heavy favourites, so you have to check out the odds after that. But if the Cavs win, play the Bulls, the line will probably be around 1.5. And we like the Hawks at plus 1.5 games. And that will pretty much wrap it up, like Heathy never does for this week.
Oh, actually, I think we've got a bonus bet coming in late from Evan. I mean, we said at the start
late mail.
40 and 20 on all sports, and this is a groundbreaking moment because Evan's going to take us into another new realm.
A new sport.
Yeah, we're going to cross the border here. We're going to go over to the UK. As you might have found out, Chelsea have won the English Premier League for this year. My Manchester United team couldn't get it done, neither Man City or Arsenal, but congratulations to Chelsea on a pretty resounding season. However, now that they've won, I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of sit a few of their best players and coast for the last few games. They're up against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge on Saturday night / Sunday morning. I think Liverpool are in 5th spot and they're 4 points behind Man United, and everyone wants a top 4 finish so they can play a European champion football next year. I'm tipping Liverpool to either win or draw here at $1.88.
Yeah, so the line for this is around $1.85, and you can get Liverpool plus half a goal. And I'll be completely honest, I don't know anything about the EPL, but Evan's convinced me here, and we've talked about it before. Motivation. So I'm happy to go with that. And I know, Sakib, you know a bit about the EPL, so what do you think about that one?
Well, it's just, in any sport, you can look at the game on paper, but there's a reason why we play the games. They say it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jims and Joes. And you've got a Liverpool team that's going to be playing for their lungs, like you said, to make the top 4. And you've got a Chelsea team that's probably just doing a victory lap. So we can get Liverpool plus half a goal. Anything can happen. It sounds like a best bet to me. First football best bet.
First EPL best bet.
Groundbreaking
stuff, and obviously if this one loses, you're fired.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the pod today. If you haven't listened to our tripod round 9 preview. Check that one out because I'm sure you'll be able to find that one. We're recording it next.
Yep.
We're going to have our thoughts on the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight of a century. You will probably want to hear that. We've got best bets in the NRL. Continue our winning streak there.
I
We
want
had
to
a
find
bye.
out how heavy both are.
Yeah, you want-
And you get to find that out.
Yeah, that's a ripper of a
It's
story.
a big day.
You know, we're just killing it with our wins, so let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
And
There
as
you go.
always, please
Please.
Please.
gamble responsibly.